Hi everybody, I'm Sam with Pitter Potter Mobile. Thank you so much for painting with me. Today we're painting Starry Snowman. Let's have some fun. So just getting started here, we're going to have to trace our stencil first. In order to do that, we're going to need the stencil and this gray transfer paper that looks like this. When you open it up, you'll see that there are two sides. There's the slick, shiny side and the sort of charcoal gray side. We're going to put the charcoal gray side so that that is what we're facing. And then the stencil will go right on top of that, and we'll just trace it right onto the canvas. Now sometimes you can just lay the canvas down flat on the table to trace, but I want to show you how easy it is to just trace right through this transfer paper. So here's my pencil, nothing special about that. Here we go. I'm going to start with the snowman just so you can see, leaving the hat off for this part. Just going to put his little face on there first. And you can see that what I've traced so far just comes right through. So it really is just as easy as that. So I just finished tracing the stencil, and you can see I went ahead and put the top hat on the snowman. All of my lines are traced. We are ready to go ahead and start painting. Here's a good nice close-up shot of where we are headed today. This one is called Starry Snowman, and I can't wait to get started. Let's have some fun. Before we begin, you want to make sure that you have some paper towels on hand, have some water to rinse your brushes with, and go ahead and get yourself familiar with the colors that came in your packet. We've got 10 colors today. These are phthalo blue, that's your super deep dark blue, titanium white, yellow oxide, phthalo green, that's a very, very deep, almost really bluish green, chrome orange, cobalt blue, chrome yellow, green oxide, and burnt umber, which is this deep dark brown, and black. Now, of course, I have already traced my stencil onto my blank canvas here. So the first color that we want to mix up takes 5 squirts of titanium white and 1 squirt of cobalt blue. That's the lighter of the two blues that you had. We're going to mix those two together until they form one even uniform color, and use that color to paint the swirl and part of the horizon line. I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to take my largest brush. This is the biggest one I have in front of me, and I want to swirl all that together until I get one pretty even color. Once I've got it, and it should give you a nice medium blue, like a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit richer than a baby blue. You'll see it better as we get it onto the canvas. But once you have it nice and even like that, we want to go ahead and paint the background color of this swirl and this little strip right here. Okay, so we're laying down the base color for those two parts of the canvas. If you go through that top hat just a little bit, do not fret. It will be black and it will not show. The top hat will be black. That's what I mean to say. And it will not show. So I am just gonna go kind of I will be careful about the snowman, however, because I don't think that will be easier. I don't think that will be easy to hide if I mess that up. There we go. And on the other side, just taking this pretty medium blue and filling in. Now, you do not have to use as big a brush as I'm using. I like to use the biggest brush that I can, but it's certainly not necessary. You can use whatever size brush works best for you. We're going to just pull that around that little swirl. And I think I am going to put this canvas in the center of the frame so that you can see a little better how this comes together. So we will move Starry Snowman to the side for just a moment and pull this one center frame. That way my arm is not the main focus. Okay, so we're just going to fill in this swirly swirl. Notice here too, you have two sides of the brush. You have the wide side and you have the narrow side. When I'm in the middle here, I'm using the wide side of my brush to get a lot of surface area. But when I get close to these edges here, I like to take it and just use the edge so that I get a nice clean line, and then I can fill in the color from there, and it's a lot easier to do that way. So these square shaped brushes are just really nice for that, for minding your edges. You can use that narrow side of the brush to do that with. There we go. Okay, so now we've painted the swirl. We're going to come down here to the line that's just above the horizon line. My horizon line is down here. This line is above that one. We're right about around the same level as the snowman's buttons. We want to take that same medium blue and just do a stroke across the top part of that area. So you'll see what I mean. I'm just following that line. Don't want to get into the snowman's stick arms or his scarf if I can help it. But again, we'll paint over that, so no worries if you do. And then keep going right along. Just right through there. Paint right on through that tree. There's a tree right here. Just paint right through it. It's totally fine. The paint is actually fairly transparent when it dries, which is why layers of color look so pretty, but it also is really convenient when you're painting through other things. Once that paint dries, that tree will show back up again a little bit, so it'll be a lot easier to see. So here we are. We've just done the medium blue. This was 5 parts of white to 1 part of cobalt blue across the swirl and just this little strip right here. I'll show you again in the finished one. So we have painted the base color for the swirl and the top part just right through here. All right, so now we're going to take one more drop or one more squirt, as we were doing, of cobalt blue and add it to the mix that we just had. It's going to deepen the color quite a bit, and we'll use that to paint the rest of the sky and that one little section, which I guess is also technically part of the sky. So we're going to paint up here, this bit here, and then this little strip here. And of course we'll blend these two into each other. But we just want to get this nice and even first. Again, that was just one more part of cobalt blue to the mixture that was already on your palette. Getting it nice and even. And then we're just going to paint right through the stars and everything else. just right on through. Remember that paint is transparent. You will see through it again once your paint dries. Now, if your paint is thicker and it doesn't become transparent again, that's okay too. We do have the stencil, we can retrace those if need be. Now check that out. There's not a whole lot of difference between this color and this color, and I want more difference. So I am going to take even more cobalt blue and do this again. I want even more contrast than what I'm getting. Maybe I just didn't add a big enough squirt of cobalt blue the last time. But let's try this. This looks substantially different to me. Oh yeah, I like that so much better. Okay, so. Congratulations, you've just finished painting your sky. Now we're going to wipe off the brush, not rinse, just wipe. So I am going to just wipe it along a clean portion of my foil so that it's mostly dry. And now we are going to work straight in some white. We get to paint the snow, y'all. Okay, so here we go. You'll notice that some of the blue comes off of the brush. That is good because we want a little dimension in that snow. So when your brush looks about like this, we're ready to start on this section. The first thing I want to do is paint the background with long, smooth strokes. We will come back and highlight the snow as well with some just pure white in a little bit, but for right now, we're just adding a base layer. A nice light base layer. Notice I painted right through that tree without a care in the world. That is okay. It'll come back to us. You may need some more white on your palette. It looks like I'm going through mine pretty quickly here. I want to make some lovely snowdrifty type lines here. Now you will see your brush strokes as you go through, so be sure that your brush strokes follow the line of the land. As the hill goes up, you want your brush strokes to follow. And then we'll come over here, finish up down here. And then I will reload my palette so that we can take care of the snowman himself. There we go. A little more white. And now we'll go in circular motions. Start at the base of the snowman. Make sure your brush is fully loaded. And just follow around. Again, I'm going to paint right on through my scarf because especially with the white, it just dries so very, very clear. I'm really not that worried about losing my scarf at all. This is how artists don't have lines in their finished products. They just paint right on through. And then they come back and edit in the next step. So here we go. Now we're going to move on to the center ball. Again, just dipping our dirty brush right into the white and starting again. I'm going to paint right through the buttons this time. Try to avoid the scarf, but and then for his face, just do the same thing again. And you can paint right through all the facial features, again, because the eyes are dark, the mouth is dark, the nose is orange, so there will be plenty of pigment to cover you painting through the face. And I have just painted through everything and I can still see it all. So really not worried there about that, about losing those lines. There we go. All right, so we've laid down our base layer on the snow and the snowman. Now I want to come back, go ahead and scrape off that brush, come back with a little more white. And now we're going to add some highlights. We want to add more white right up here. Just blend it right into that wet color. Just like that. Anywhere you want the moonlight to be shining, the stars to be shining, give yourself a little more white. I'm going to come over here and there we go. Alrighty, still playing around here. I want to go ahead and add a little shadow to the underside of my snowman. So I'm going to pull back into that blue again and just give him a nice little shadow. I'm going to extend that out just a little. I want to do a shadow under where the tree will be, so just right over here. And I don't know, let's see, maybe some going up a little under here, and maybe one or two over here. Just give it a little dimension, you know, play with it. It's your snow. You make it look how you want it to look. So we are basically finished now with the base layers of the painting. Good job. Bringing back our example for just a moment, I just want you to be able to see we've already put down our base layers. We're getting ready to add these dark blue dashes to the sky. So we'll be working in this section, this middle section, and then this little stripe down here. So we'll be working in the super dark blue, adding those dashes to the darker parts of the sky next. I'm going to take a nice medium-sized brush this time. It's a little smaller than the one I was working in before. Dip it straight into the phthalo blue, that's your super deep dark blue. Make sure the phthalo is the only color on your brush. And we're going to go ahead and start with some quick, short dashes. We want to follow the line of the windy swirl. So that is where we're starting so that we have good rows. Now notice you don't have to reload your brush after every dash. You can just keep going with it until your paintbrush runs out. stagger those like bricks, you know, and just keep going until you've got the whole sky full of these little windy dashes. Let's move to an even smaller brush. We'll use something around the size of a number 6. I'm going to switch back into that snow color, maybe as much cobalt blue as white, so not very much, just a nice light color that you can see there. And we're going to do the same thing inside the swirl that we just did to the rest of the sky, but this will be our new accent color. So I am going to start in the interior there of that swirl and just bring it out. Look, it almost looks white, right? Like this is the blizzard. This is the snow coming around in the wind. So it's really, really light. And I'm just gonna bring it on through. Welcome back. It's the next day. I let my sky dry completely. I had painted it a little thick, so I wanted to give it a lot of time to dry. You'll see we've got the layers here. We are 2 layers into our sky so far, and the next step is to add these yellow stars. The way we get them so bright is to white the background first. And what I mean by that is I'm going to take this number 8 bright brush and just dip it into some white. It's just straight white on my palette there. And I want to create the backdrop for these stars. And I'm just going to decide where I want them to be. But if you want yours to be in different places, put them where you like them. So I'm just going to start planning where I'd like my stars to be. And you can see that I'm creating that center circle and then the little rays of brightness around it as well. So I think I'll do a few. I'm not putting them in the same place as the last time, just kind of giving them a little variation there. And go back and do it again. Just a little circle in the middle and then some starlight around it. Maybe I'll do another one here. And we'll want to let this white dry before we go back and apply the yellow over the top of it. So let me get a couple down here as well. Okay, now I'm going to go in and do you see these smaller stars? They're not quite as large as the yellow ones. They're just sort of twinkling. We're looking at these little ones right here and here. Those are the ones we're going to paint next. Let me get that on there. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I want to use my number 2 brush this time. That's just a little fine detailer. I'm going to put my white brush down for right now. I'll come back to that in just a bit, but I'm just going to dip my detailer brush in, and just between my big stars I'm going to put some smaller stars. These don't have to go into any particular place. If you want them, you want to just kind of decide in the moment where you want them to be, that's perfect. Okay, and now since I've got all this white that I'm working in, and I need to take some time to let those dry anyway, I'm going to go over this one. It's getting a little thin. I'm going to work in the snow a little bit more. I've given everything, you know, a chance to dry, and I can see that it's a little bluer than I'd really like it to be. So I'm going to take this original brush that I was working with, and I'm just going to add a little brightness to some of these pieces here that were the snow. Just want to work that in and just brighten them back up just a little. The wonderful thing about acrylic paint is that it is so blendable and workable. You can really, you know, work with it, let it dry, look at it, see how you feel about it, go back, do it again, and keep working with it until you get to where you really want to be. It's just really excellent that way. I'll start in the middle where it's the brightest and work my way out. There we go. Oh, I really like that now. This is looking really good. I like that much better. I may do that again on the middle section of Snowman too. That's just a lot better. Okay. And now I'll work into the ground a little bit as well. I definitely want to highlight this ridge here. I know the starlight should be shining there. So let me load up my brush. This is again just pure white. I want to do long, loose strokes. And I definitely want to blend that in to what's already around it. There we go. And as this dries, as the white dries, of course it comes back, becomes very, very transparent again. So do not worry about that. You will see through those layers quite nicely. It will look really good. I want to come back over here to maybe add a little bit more brightness to the foreground. I'm going to come over here. Keep those strokes long and loose. I go ahead over here. Just like that. Liking this a lot. Okay, now that Now that I'm in a place that I like a little better, now I want to grab some of that chrome yellow, which is the brighter yellow. I'll show you. That's this one. We're going to take a little bit of this and yellow in those bigger stars. So just a little dab there is all you're going to need. You don't need a lot of paint on your brush. Actually, you know, a drier brush is probably a good thing here. And we're just going to go over what we've painted. I'm going to brace with my pinky so I can be really steady. And again, you know, keep it loose, keep it easy. If you don't exactly match your white lines under there, that's actually a little better because that, you know, kind of gives that air of brilliance to it. So let them be close, but you're certainly not looking for an exact match here. But look how that comes, it really pops, you know? When I finish with this, I'm looking at the wind swirl on this canvas here, and I'm thinking, I really like how some of these were so much brighter in this one. I may go back with some pure bright white and just punch that up a little bit. I'm really liking how this is coming along. And drop that brush in the water, move back to the white with my little fine detail brush. And I am just gonna punch up some of this white, give it a little brilliance here. I don't wanna do every one of them, but I wanna do a few, you know, give them a little extra oomph. I love that. I think that looks really good. So we're ready to move on. Now that we have our sky just about where we want it to be, I want to move into the burnt umber. We want to take just a little dab of this and put it right next to the white that's already on your palette. This is going to be mixed about 1-to-1 with the white so that you have a nice medium brown. We're just going to take about as much white as we put down of the brown, and it's going to lighten it up considerably to this lovely, lovely light brown. This is what we're going to use to do the outlines of the snowman and then also the trunk and branches of the tree. So I'm just going to mix it to a nice, lovely light brown. Make sure it's even on my brush. And then I'm going to start with a dotted outline for my snowman. I'm going to start here under the hat and just give myself little lines. I want to avoid the scarf and the nose. And we'll come closer here so you can see. Oops, if I don't stick to the easel. There we go. So coming a little closer, you can see these fine little lines that we're putting around the edge of the snowman here. And I'm going to go under that ball all the way over to the edge where the scarf is supposed to be, and then come back around over here and outline the entire bottom of the snowman. And just keep working it until you're all the way around. There we go. And now we're ready to go ahead and work on the tree. I just want to color that in. All the way up here to the top. We're going to, of course, give ourselves the little branches too. Maybe one more set. Remember to go wider the further down you get. And we're going to let that dry, of course, and then we'll come back with the fir green and fill in the leaves there. Let's add a little black to our palette now. It's time to go ahead and fill in the eyes, the eyebrows, and the mouth of our snowman. So I'm just going to take that same fine detail brush and fill in those eyes and the happy eyebrows, and then fill in the mouth as well. It's got a nice, big, bright, happy smile. Another way you can do those for perfect circles is to use the back end of your brush. If you have a rounded handle tip, you can dip that right in so that you get a perfect circle, and just dip that right in place, and you'll have a lovely perfect circle that way too. So it's your choice. You can either paint with the bristles or the back end of the brush for this one. We'll let that dry, and we will move on to some of the other fun detail work. Let's go ahead and color in that orange carrot nose right now. Still working in the small brush. And I just want to fill in that carrot nose. Take your time with this part. Remember, you can do multiple coats, so if the first time doesn't cover as well as you'd like, just let that dry, and then we'll do a second coat and it'll come out nice and vibrant. We're also going to add a little cobalt blue to our palette. This is the same color that we worked in for the sky, but we're going to come back and get our buttons now. Just need a tiny amount for those buttons. Dry off my brush. Work it into that blue. Twist your bristles so that you get a nice fine point. And then brace with your pinky. And this is basically the same technique that we did for the sky, for the stars. You want to get the middle first and then go around it to just insinuate the outline of those buttons. And that is that. Let's go ahead and work in that raw umber, or burnt umber, I'm sorry, to get the stick nose. It's not the nose, to get the stick arms. And then let's go back and shade this tree a little bit. It's a little bit lighter than maybe I'd like. So I want to dip back into just the burnt umber, not the mixture, just the raw brown, that deep dark brown. And I want to paint in those arms, and I want to paint in a little bit on that tree trunk. It's just not quite as dark as I think I like it. So starting with the arms. Again, notice that I've braced with my pinky. I want nice, confident lines. So I'm holding my wrist still. And I'm just going to keep filling in until all the white is gone. So now we can see we've got the stick arm completed over here. We'll go ahead and fill it in on the other side too. We have not painted the scarf yet, so if you accidentally get your brush into that scarf a little bit, do not worry. we will get to the green scarf very, very soon. There we go. Now we have two lovely stick arms. Again, if they're not dark enough or if they haven't covered completely for you, let them dry, go back and paint a second coat and you'll get excellent coverage. I want to go back and shade my tree just a little bit. I think what I'm going to do is, because the front of these balls of snow are brighter, I'm going to let the front of the trunk be brighter as well. So I'm just going to shade along either side and underneath. And that way the front of the tree is the bright part. And you can start to see that depth of color coming in. It'll just make it look illuminated. All the way to the top. Just like that. We want to skip the top of the tree, the very top of the tree, because of course the stars would be shining down on that. We want to make sure that the base of the tree is the darkest, of course. I'm going to fill that in just a little bit deeper, just a little bit further. There we go, and that's looking really good. I'm really happy with that. While we're waiting on all of these coats to dry, let's go back in and paint our hat black. We're going to need that to be black before we can fill in the details. So I'm going to rinse off this fine detail brush. I accidentally got this other one in the water too, so rinse it off. Not in the water, in the black paint. So I'm going to rinse it off too. I want to take a nice medium-sized brush, something about like this, about like that. Dip it into the black, and we will just blacken that hat. Don't worry about details right now. We're just laying down a base coat, so I'm just going to fill it in. And then we'll come back and highlight it with a little white. And those white highlights will make it make good sense to your eyes as you look at it. That's looking good. We've got a nice even coverage here. So we'll just let that dry completely, and then we'll come back and add our white highlights in just a wee bit. In the meantime, let's work on the scarf and the green of the tree. The green of the tree is really simple. That's just your phthalo green. That's that super deep dark green that looks like it has a little blue in it. We're going to put just a dollop of that on our palette. Doesn't take much. I want to switch back to the fine detail brush. We'll start at the top of the tree and work our way down in individual brush strokes. So we're just going to start at the top and just like we did the stars, just like we did the wind. Every leaf is its own quick, short, quick brush stroke. You'll see that the phthalo green is very transparent, and that's good. That's going to allow us to build up the color. We can go back and do this a couple of times and get this really gorgeous, rich depth of color here. Be sure you color down the trunk of the tree as well. You've got the leaves, you know, between you and the trunk of the tree, so those need to be represented too. And we're just going to keep on going. Stop your leaves in front of the trunk about here so that you can still see the base of the tree peeking out from under the bottom there. And I really like how this tree is coming along, but I will add a little bit of color to it as time passes. In the meantime, I'm going to take a little bit of this green oxide. This is the lighter green, and put it on. This will be the base color for our scarf. Take yourself a, you know, a number 6 or a number 8. I think I'll use my number 8 here. Dip it straight into the green oxide, which already has this beautiful yellow undertone to it. It's really quite nice. And just go ahead and fill in that scarf. We want to give ourselves a nice base here. This will be the nice base coat for the green. And we'll come back and add a little detail to it once it's dry. Alrighty, this is looking really good. So let's let it dry and then we'll add some details. We are just a couple of short, quick steps away from being able to sign our masterpieces. We want to add a little detail to the scarf. We'll use yellow oxide, which is the darker of the 2 yellows in your kit, and we'll also use a little phthalo green, which we have already used on our fir tree. We will first start with the yellow oxide. Again, that's this one, to add a little highlight to the scarf. If you put it next to the chrome yellow, you'll really notice the difference between the two. It's quite a bit more golden in tone, and it is just lovely. You want to use your smallest brush, and we're just going to add some quick highlights toward the top and the ends of the scarf. So I've got a little yellow oxide, and I'm just bringing it down the fringe of the scarf, and I'll also highlight the tops when I get to there. So just want to give it a little, just a little variation in color here. Give it a little highlight up top there. And then focus your yellow oxide at the fringes of both parts of the scarf so that you get a lot of yellow there. It'll just brighten it right up, make it look really, really pretty. Just like that. And then we want to take that phthalo green that we've already got on our palettes here. That's the darker of the 2 greens. And I just want to give myself some stitch marks. So I'm just going to do short, quick strokes just to insinuate stitches in the scarf all through there. There we go. So now we have a nice, lovely scarf, and the last thing that we have to do there is to put the snow on the hat. We'll add some highlights and we'll add some snow to the hat, and that will really bring out those fine details up there, and then we can sign it and it will be finished. So first, let me rinse off the green from my detail brush here. I want to stick with it for the white, but of course, because it's white, it really won't forgive if we have any green left on our brush at all. We need to be very, very thorough there. We get it all off. And then dip into the white. Start with the snow on the top and just speckle it just a little, just like he's getting a little dusting. Just a little dusting on the top there. And maybe it's going down the side a wee bit. We want to give him a nice ribbon across the top there, across the where the hat ribbon goes. And then of course we want to speckle the top of the brim. Is it the brim or the rim of his hat as well? Snow is collecting on both areas, so we want to be sure that we give him quite a lot of detail. And there we are. One beautiful starry snowman. Thank you so much for watching the Starry Snowman painting. I hope you had fun. Join me next time.